The headliners, the newsmakers, the political scene, and government issues. These should be our concern. And we're taking you at the forefront. Good morning. I am Attorney Karen Jimeno. Join me at the forefront as we zero in and discuss the details of some of the most pressing national issues that our country faces. A few months before the official filing of the candidacies for the 2025 midterm elections, politics and politicking have been heating as of late. It appears that lines have been drawn between the administration and the camp of former President Duterte and his allies. Will these political alignments stick all the way to next year's elections, or will there be a shift in the horizon? Joining us today to share his insights on the political going-ons in the country, we have with us at the forefront the head of Political Science Department of the University of the East, Professor Eric de Torres. Good morning, Professor Eric.
Good morning, Attorney Karen. Thank you for having me in your program.
Thank you so much for your time today. So, Professor Eric, first let's start. What's your take on the political landscape here in the country today?
Well, everything is very dynamic, as you can see, Karen. As what you have said in your introduction, that number one, lines have been drawn already. So if you noticed, former allies are now basically considered to be the positioning themselves as an opposition. Many things, have happened in the past that significantly affected the relationship of the administration, as well as, of course, we're talking about the Dutertes for that matter. This significantly is a test case of how things will be in preparation for the 2025 as well as the 2028 elections. But my take is that for this year, it's imperative for the administration as well as both camps to be able to establish and see to it that their allies are basically intact in preparation for the midterm elections. So the midterms election is very crucial on the part of the administration, as this is something that would significantly legitimize their capacity to be able to win an election that is in accordance to their own standing, so to speak. So if you notice in 2022 elections, it's the unity team that so-called brought upon strategic votes from various areas. So this is a test case on the part of the administration on how will they be able to dominate the political landscape in terms of preparation for the 2025 elections.
Professor Eric, you mentioned earlier that there were events that occurred that led to, well, drawing the lines or this breakup between the administration and the group of former President Duterte. Can you mention some of these significant events?
Well, of course, the first significant event is very recent that basically says it all, wherein Vice President Sara Duterte already resigned as a member of the cabinet. Secondly, it's one event that led to another, especially the criticism of very vocal criticism of the Dutertes, specifically, of course, former President Rodrigo Duterte and Baste Duterte, wherein it affected significantly the relationship of the president as well as the vice president. So at the end of the day, we're able to see that blood will always be thicker than water. Of course, as from a political analyst vantage point, their unity is just only, of course, temporary, and it will not hold water, considering that, of course, there are many factors, the interplay of forces within both camps, for that matter. So I think those two are significant events, and when Vice President Sara Duterte resigned as the member of the cabinet, that says it all. And of course, one by one, with the recent pronouncement of the Vice President, I mean, that's it.
Yeah. But Professor Eric, when we say that the Vice President resigned from the cabinet, and then also the statements made by former President Duterte against the administration, or specifically against President Bongbong Marcos, those are already, let's say, like the symptoms exhibiting, but the underlying cause, would you have any idea what caused the breakup from the start?
Yeah. Of course, it's something that, of course, the public is have difficulty in discerning, in being able what went wrong, what led to this breakup, so to speak. So we can only assume that, of course, it's something that is, of course, personal, as well as basically differences in terms of the way that we intend to look at their ideology, for that matter, or the thrust by which how they intend to look at the country, so to speak. The underlying principle also is the difference in terms of how they intend to look at, for example, their alliances between the major powers such as the United States as well as to China. These are among few that we can only speculate. But of course, in terms of what really is the underlying reason, that's very much difficult to discern. Of course, there's also an issue with regard to the pending issue with regard to the ICC and so on and so forth. So this is something that is a very delicate matter that inevitably would affect the relationship of these two families and their alliance, so to speak.
Professor Eric, you mentioned ICC. Do you think that this is also being used as a political tool? We had prior here in the show, former Senator Laida de Lima, and she was saying that when the president allowed the ICC investigation to proceed, but really not also make an official statement as to whether the country is rejoining the ICC. He said basically what the administration is doing recently is to just create a sword of Damocles hanging over the head of former President Duterte. So do you think that when it comes to the ICC issue, this is really used more as a political tool right now in relation to this breakup or faction between the current administration and former President Duterte?
Yeah. My own take with regard to that is that it's sort of a warning. It's don't press it too much. Otherwise, we also have the thing about the ICC. So it's, I think, a warning on the part of the administration that, hey, don't press it too much, because we also have limitations. We can accommodate, okay, you criticize us, but at the end of the day, there's also a ICC that is in front of us that can also be used as a sword to press also the Dutertes. So especially former President Rodrigo Duterte.
Professor Eric, what about Pastor Kibuloy? He's also seen as an ally of former President Duterte. And right now, there's also this effort to really to arrest him for offenses that were committed supposedly in the U.S. So do you think this also is part of the political strategy?
Yeah, I very much think so also, Karen. But regardless of a political strategy, I mean, there had been numerous cases, and it was filed. There's also a standing a warrant of arrest for Pastor Kibuloy. So I think it's also just a matter of time that these charges brought upon him will be really be actualized. So whether political or otherwise, when the court decides, I think it should be implemented. And I think that the administration is just, pursuing and, doing its job because of, the evidence is very much clear on the part of the government, to really apprehend Pastor Kibuloy for that matter.
Mm-hmm. Another person that is a bit difficult to place in all of these, the conflict, is Senator Amy Marcos. So people have always been wondering, where does she really stand in this case? She's a sister to President Bongbong Marcos, but she has also publicly stated several times that her loyalty is to the Dutertes. So what do you think of this?
Yes, it's actually a very difficult situation and very challenging situation for Senator Amy, of course. Though she is the sister of PBBM, her allegiance and loyalty still on the part of the Dutertes. And not only that, could that or would that have a political backlash considering that she is a re-electionist for this upcoming 2025 elections? So is that the strategy also on the part of Senator Amy that still get hold of the North, and at the same time giving loyalty to the Dutertes would also mean that the voting bloc of the South can also benefit her? So I think it's a very would have eventually or in the long run that Senator Amy, and I'm just second guessing, to be able to get still best of both worlds, being able to come up with that, getting that base votes solid from North as well as getting the solid from the South.
So do you think that for Senator Amy Marcos, she will run in 2025 in the administration ticket, like their political party?
Yeah, that's also another question, but I will not be surprised, Attorney Karen, if Senator Amy would run independently so as to be able to show that I'm neutral. I'm neutral, that my allegiance is to the Duterte, but also I'm the sister of the former president. So to be able to accommodate as such, I can or she might be able to run independently, or she can run independently.
There are currently three major political forces at play in the country. So we have the current administration of President Bongbong Marcos, and then we have former President Duterte and his allies, and then of course the third will be the liberal bloc. But so far we've seen basically publicly that we have this faction between President Bongbong Marcos and his group and former President Duterte. Where do you think the Liberal Party will start becoming more visible again in terms of having their one front runner for 2028, but also where where their plans are politically?
In my own analysis, Attorney Karen, is that it seems that the Liberal Party is starting to align themselves to the administration, primarily because of against, of course, the Duterte. You can see Senator De Lima, of course, former Senator Trillanes. These are basically the faces of the Liberal Party. We're in starting now, they're trying to somehow align. But also, a good question is that what is actually left of the Liberal Party as compared to other political parties, like for example, the NPC, the Lakas. If you noticed, there seems to be a alliance going on, and alignment of these major political parties or contenders in the administration parties, such as the PFP aligning themselves with Lakas, NPC, and so on and so forth. So if you notice, everything is really polarized right now, and looking at various political parties aligning themselves with the administration, and you have the Duterte bloc. So lines have been clearly drawn. It's either black or white, Duterte or the administration.
Okay, so you think those two are the major players at the moment, and we've yet to see how the Liberal Party will play a part in this.
Yes, and I think what is the question there, Attorney Karen, is that what is left of the Liberal Party? The only remaining thing are key personalities within the Liberal Party. But to really say that there are still remaining to be Liberal Party members, we have yet to see that, and to be able to really gather enough candidates both from the national as well as the local level. So that's going to be a very surprising entry, or something that we should watch for this coming months as we gear towards along the filing of election come October. But it's very clear, it's only on the part of the Dutertes, you only have the PDP.
Vice President Sara Duterte was consistently rating highly. Her approval ratings were always very high, most of the time even higher than President Bongbong Marcos. But in the last survey this month that came out, it seems like her approval rating dipped. And what do you think accounts for this?
So, well, of course, number one would be her manner of, switching, sides. Of course, from being part of the administration to perhaps, or, with her recent statement and critic with regard to the administration, positioning herself as the opposition for that matter. Secondly, is that people began to think really after which what really happened. Was there significant improvement in the quality of education? The critic also of, saying that after 3 years, mayroon ka bang nagawa sa Department of Education? Of course, there's also a looming concern or issue that, that's yet to be resolved is, or unresolved up to this point in time, is the intelligence fund. How was she able to spend it in just matter of weeks? So, these things are very much recurring. May it be politically driven or otherwise. But I think people are asking something tangible that, what significant, movement, reform, or improvement in the quality of education the country have had the moment that she was appointed as the DepEd Secretary. So my take is that, it's really about that. Second is, how was she able to position herself? The positioning is very important. And before, she's not giving any kind of statement. She's quite quiet about it. But now, all of a sudden, she became a strong critic and criticizing almost every aspect of the government. So I think it has a significant impact on how people perceive her or now as the candidate. That significantly affected her approval rating.
Okay. Professor Eric, there are unconfirmed reports that there will be an impeachment case filed against Vice President Sara Duterte. Do you think this will prosper? But before you answer that question, we'll have to take a short break. At the forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the forefront. And we still have with us today Professor Eric de Torres. Professor Eric, before the break we were asking, there are unconfirmed reports that an impeachment case will be filed against Vice President Sara Duterte. If this happens, do you think it will prosper?
That's actually a very challenging question, Attorney Karen. Let's see that. Let's look at it that impeachment, Attorney Karen, is not really it's really a political process. It's really more of a political approach if you intend to eliminate basically a particular rival. So to answer whether or not this would prosper, I think it's a very challenging and it's a tough question. But for me, an impeachment is really a political process. It's a numbers game that would also depend on how you intend to look at the allies of the administration from both the lower as well as the Senate, the lower house as well as the Senate. Secondly, should they be able to gain or muster enough support at the lower house, how will the Senate act on it in terms of their partiality? At the end of the day, people or politicians of both chambers would say that they are impartial and all, but at the end of the day, it's just a political process.
Yes. Do you think Congress has the numbers to file the impeachment?
Oh, definitely, Attorney Karen. They do have the numbers. They do have the majority because of the coalition, so to speak. Even I think that and I'm second guessing that I'm assuming that also the Makabayan bloc would, align themselves and, I will not be surprised if they will support the articles of impeachment that can be or may be filed against Vice President Sara Duterte. But my take on this is that should this prosper, would this in any way really eliminate, and how will this change the public perception towards Vice President Sara? Would this in any way destroy her credibility as Vice President, as the daughter of former President Rodrigo Duterte? Or will this gain enough momentum to create a sympathy, and at the same time, Filipinos associate themselves with the underdog, so to speak. So it's an interesting approach to eliminate your rival, to impeach them. But I'm very much concerned if that would be the take or the process, could that have a backlash also on the part of the administration, providing momentum and giving momentum on the part of VP Sara in the next years to come, should this impeachment be pursued by the administration or by the...
Yeah, and Professor Eric, the other issue is the ICC coming in and, for example, possibly arresting former President Duterte. Do you think that this can also cause a backlash against President Bongbong Marcos and his administration?
Of course, definitely, Attorney Karen. You look at the president, when the former President Rodrigo Duterte stepped down, he at least still has an approval rating of, at least if I'm not mistaken, 75% plus. So that's a very high still approval rating. What can the masses are within the one who strongly supports former President Rodrigo Duterte. Former President Rodrigo Duterte or the Dutertes still is a force to reckon with. My concern is that should this be pursued, the ICC, what would be the impact of this to the politics, of course, of the administration together with its allies? Again, I'm very particular about it, that would this significantly eliminate your political rival, or you're just giving them more momentum and shifting the public's opinion to gain more sympathy on the part of the Dutertes.
So it is really very interesting going into the 2025 elections. Now let's talk about the ongoing congressional inquiries on POGO operations. And recently, Congress created what they call the Quad Committee to investigate POGO operations as linked to the illegal drug trade and also extrajudicial killings. First, what do you make of this Quadcom? Do you think this is really an effective way to, look into all of these issues?
Okay. Attorney Karen, I have reservations with regard to this Quadcom. And not only Quadcom, but how the legislative branch is positioning itself, that, okay, we all know for a fact that this is an inquiry, it's a special committee created to basically form an inquiry in aid of legislation, which is, by the way, yes, given that is actually form part of the function of the legislative branch. But if it is really an in-depth investigation, why not intensify, create a special body for the police, for the NBI, basically, the law enforcement agencies. Another thing is that, was there significant recommendation by the committees after, for example, the inquiry and the investigation? Do they publicly, for example, discuss, or they hold press conference in terms of what they found out about the committee? That's one. Number two, what specific legislation that they actually, or what specific law or bill that they intend to do to, as a byproduct of that investigation that they want to amend, and so on and so forth. So I think this is very much overrated in terms of looking at such. Number two, I think they're creating a narrative. And what's the narrative? Basically aligning all of these issues and concerns with the POGO, with all of these illegal activities, the EJK and so on, basically, and so forth, they saw an opening to be able to create that narrative in such a way that would pin down, of course, the political rival. So, of course, it's very premature to whether or not what will take place within the investigation, but it's, I think, how the narrative will be created for that matter.
Let's look at the makeup or the people involved in the Quadcom. So we have at first, Committee on Dangerous Drugs, that's chaired by Representative Ace Barbers. Let's look at his background. Well, first, is he for re-election? Because, like you mentioned, it seems that there's a narrative being created among with all the issues being tied together, but also with 2025 elections coming up. We all know that Congress, all of them, are up for re-election. So this can also be a platform for them to be seen nationally, right? So maybe we can go by all the committee chair people and see like if they're for re-election, like what do we know of Representative Ace Barbers?
Yeah, of course, Representative Ace Barbers, and from the three, most of them are re-electionists. Aside, of course, from Karaps Paduano, he's a party list representative from Abang Lingkod, which basically exposure on his part. But the dynamics in the local is very much different because, of course, if they have a very strong base votes and a very strong support at the locality, then it won't be a problem for them with the three. Well, of course, with the exception of Representative Paduano, who is actually a party list representative of Abang Lingkod. But this is really more of really support, really, and has nothing to do, I think, in terms of the dynamics at the local level for these three representatives. But this is really more of in terms of their exposure, in terms of also their support with the thrust of the administration, and of course what is being what you call this, call upon to really investigate. Kasi if you're going to ask me, a lot of people would think that why now, why only now, right? You could have done this like 2023, 2022, but as early as they were appointed, they won their respective seats. But why now? 2024, next year's 2025, 2 months before filing. The question to each and everyone's mind is, why only now? You could have done this a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Or even the position, for example, on the ICC, when the term of President Bongbong Marcos started, he said that he would not allow the ICC to come in, that the justice system in the Philippines is working. So there's also a shift that we're seeing right now in terms of suddenly allowing the ICC to come in. So are you saying that the recent events when it comes to policy, and even now when it comes to investigation of supposedly illicit activities, the timing is a bit off or suspect?
Yes, definitely it's the timing that is actually a bit off. Secondly, people see the inconsistency in terms of how we intend to look at the specific situation right now, considering that before the statement and pronouncement is that, hey, we have our own sovereignty, we should the process is actually working. No, but then all of a sudden there seems to be a shift in terms of the pronouncement. So why now, especially with the looming concern of the election, the filing and of the candidacy is just 2 months ahead of us. Secondly, it's the election. So why all of a sudden now? So that's a bit difficult to answer. and especially the public is actually very much aware right now. The public is actually informed about what is actually happening. So that's the thought of most of the people's mind right now.
Professor Eric, do you ever see President Bongbong Marcos and the camp of Vice President Sara and former President Duterte reconciling either before the 2025 elections or after? But before you answer that question, we'll have to go on a short break. At the forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the forefront. Professor Eric, before the break, we were asking you, do you ever see President Bongbong Marcos and the camp of Vice President Sara Duterte and former President Rodrigo Duterte reconciling, perhaps before the 2025 elections or shortly after?
It's a very challenging question, Attorney Karen. But what I can only say is that we will continue to pray and we will continue to, hope that these political families would reconcile in the near future for the sake of the country, for the sake of the nation. They started off as allies. They have very good ideas, they have dreams for the country, for the betterment of the Filipino people. At the end of the day, Attorney Karen, I think what is more important, and we should all focus, especially right now, is how to get, to improve the quality of life of each and every Filipino people. So we're hoping and praying that, setting aside politics, all of this movement, all of the things happening around us politically, I would like to believe that this is something for the benefit of the Filipino people. And it's something that we would like to aspire for, to hope that these two families, together with their supporters, supporters both from the upper as well as the lower house, would reconcile and work together for the betterment of the Filipino people.
Okay, I like your answer, Professor Eric. Let's pray for them. Professor Eric, tomorrow is the start of the hearing of the Quadcom in Pampanga. Where do you see this going? First, earlier we were talking about the chairpersons of the different committees involved in this Quadcom. Are they all allies of the President and his administration?
Yeah, of course, the fact that they actually, agreed to be part and chair the committee significantly tells us that they are an ally. Another thing is that, of course, we could say that for purposes that they would be able to really look at it and be, let's say, in-depthly discuss and know the major considerations. They go there, they will be going there to investigate properly, to look at the situation. But I mean, you're in the legislative branch. For me, as a political analyst, I really couldn't really comprehend that. Why still go there? What is it about there that you need to go if it is an inquiry in aid of legislation? So, yun yung tanong ko doon bakit kinakailangan mo pang pumunta, kaya mo namang ipatawag yung important committee member. Secondly, ano pa yung hindi nakikita doon na hindi na-cover at nakita na ng media? So, people are also thinking that ano ba to? Papogi lang ba to? It is just for the show? Ano ba talaga yung tinitignan? But I'm particular about what narrative is going to be created as such. In terms of looking at the situation. Because for me, I couldn't, Attorney Karen, see the logic of why still go there. Well, everybody naman knows what happened, what's supposedly the illustration. So I cannot really get the logic, Attorney Karen.
And I think one of the things that the public would be curious to know about is the cost involved. If you're holding a committee hearing, and in this case, 4 committees will be going, that's why it's Quadcom, to Pampanga, and then later will they be going to other provinces as well to conduct similar hearings if they're going by a certain logic that they're bringing it close to where the operations occurred. So do you think at the end of the day this will result in effective, I don't know, more effective legislation being passed?
We are hoping, Attorney Karen. For example, Attorney Karen, why not if there is, they want to amend, for example, a particular legislation, why not, for example, go to far-flung areas, to those who are not being reached by government services, to really amend a particular legislation or law or Republic Act for what have you, to go there specifically, far-flung areas, to really see the situation of those people who are affected, then they could have been. Are they actually doing that? Why not? I mean, it's a double standard, approach that in this particular case, you need to go there. But there are many more pressing issues and concerns that could affect lives of the people. Why not specifically go there? Parang bakit dito sa sitwasyon na to, pupunta ka dun sa Pampanga at sasabihin mong you're really into it. Pero alimbawa, yung legislation na kung saan mapapabuti yung buhay ng mga mahihirap o ng mga ibang tao na wala pang road dito, wala pang bridge dito, ba't hindi puntahan doon? And so it's really something that is very difficult to comprehend, Attorney Karen.
Or perhaps, Professor Eric, why not also go to the areas that were severely flooded during Typhoon Karina, right? When you're talking about pressing issues. Professor Eric, going into the 2025 elections, what do you think the public can expect?
Definitely the public can expect that we should be more vigilant. I'm calling also upon this opportunity to call upon the public to be more critical, because especially, Attorney Karen, now more than ever, the influence basically of social media and various social media platforms. Not every information, basically, Attorney Karen, is reliable. I'm calling upon the public to be more critical about the information that they are reading, where the information is actually coming from. And of course, they should be able to watch more programs like your programs and other, programs that are very critical in terms of really, fleshing out issues such as this. So we should expect that, there are many, now more than ever, social media will be used as a very instrumental tool in, trending and giving information to the public. Now, it's up to the public to be critical and just accept whether or not to reject or accept the information that is actually in front of us. When it comes to specifically to the politics concern, we can really see that the lines are actually drawn, and this is actually a testimony of whether or not the administration can, majority of their candidates or their slate or their ticket or their team would win this coming 2025 elections. And that's a testimony that indeed they're already an independent force that is not entirely dependent to the formula or the framework that happened in 2022 of the said unity team, where the Southern Bloc base votes were actually given to both the North and the South.
Thank you so much, Professor Eric de Torres. Really very great advice and very insightful. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Attorney Karen.
Politics and politicking usually heat up in the Philippines months before an election. This time turned out to be different because it came rather a little too early. While the official filing of candidacies with the Commission on Elections is still set in October, political posturings and maneuverings have started ahead. The Filipino public is closely watching the issues and discerning for themselves who they think are really working for the people and who are just making up a facade. After all, the choice for the country's next leaders still lies with the people. Be timely informed, be insightful of the news. Always stay at the forefront. Join us again tomorrow for meaningful conversations. This is Attorney Karen Jimeno. Thank you for spending your hour with us.